So this COVID-19 situation is obviously tough for a lot of businesses, and we're seeing a real big variance because we're finding that some companies are pretty much tanked business to next to nothing. And other companies, suddenly an influx in demand due to the nature of the products and services being the kind of thing that people want in the situation. So you've got like food, pharmaceuticals, medical, transportation, that kind of stuff, goods transportation up, finance up, and other things like inevitably travel and entertainment inevitably down. Also home education, that kind of business model up. And what you're seeing and what I'm seeing is a massive change in the way that people are living their day-to-day lives. And those changes impact on how they spend. So people are looking more than ever to invest in digital assets. So you've got people doing Zoom video meetings as opposed to face-to-face consultations for personal training. You've got people consuming more media on the television. You've got online courses being delivered in electronic format and people creating online resources. And the reality of the matter is this situation that we're in at the minute is a high likelihood it's going to end up in a recessionary period. But because of the nature of the virus, the prediction that I have is that we're going to have this short period of time where businesses, it's a really rough period for businesses, some businesses dropping to zero revenue. But after that, we're going to be in a position where the marketplace is very different. And those that have been able to cling on and survive and make the most of that period are going to be the ones that win, because you might find that other players in the marketplace in their category have gone. So that there's like a difference in the supply and demand of their goods and services post coronavirus. And we know, because people recover from this, we know that it's likely that this is going to be a short-term thing, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, fortunately. So the reason I'm creating this video isn't to sort of lecture you. I just wanted to give you some things that you as a business, and this can apply to you if you're a one-man band, if you're a small team, or if you're a large team, but things that you can be doing as a company to make sure that you're adding value and you're building assets that allow you to generate more revenue later, even though you might not necessarily be able to generate the revenue now. So one example, so I've got a list here of 18 items I'm going to go through. So one item is to write up process documents. So your day-to-day operations, things that you need to delegate to people. Process documentation is a great way to make sure that you're delivering what you say you do what you say that you do, a good quality, a good consistent quality. It takes time to build up those resources, and what a better time to write them when you haven't got as many distractions in your business. Another really good option is to pre-configure a load of advertising campaigns on digital platforms. So you've got all the different social media channels, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok if you're going after a different audience. All of these platforms, you can create advertisement campaigns that are ready to go for when we hit the end of this, when the economy starts to pick back up again. You turn those ads on, throw your marketing spend out there, and that could be a way of you generating money into the future. You could be creating high quality website copy. Search engine optimization is a long-term strategy. You've got to create really good, compelling content. That content takes time to write. So what a better time to write that content, get it up. And it could, if you create the right piece of content, really decent, rich piece of content that is better than what other people in the marketplace are providing, then you can find yourself in a position where that content performs for you for maybe a year or 2 years after writing and publishing. So we wrote one recently on portals, how to boost your business with an online portal. It's about a 30-minute read, really big article. But that's something that we did pre-coronavirus. But writing a second one of those it could be really good. You could create a series of client onboarding emails. So when people sign up for Scorchsoft's mailing list, or when they sign up as a new customer and opt in, they'll receive a series of emails from Scorchsoft, like a welcome campaign. Things that I want to make sure that the customers know things that if you're building an app, it's quite complex. There's lots of things you need to know. So we send out a series of emails that informs people of what they need to know. So if you don't have something like that in place, you could create it, and then when business starts to pick up, new leads that come in are being updated and have knowledge of your process. That could increase sales volumes. It could increase customer retention. Increase the likelihood that you can sell to your existing customers rather than having to get new customers. But the new customers at least are being informed as well. So you could, if you're using a CRM system, customer relationship management system, you could go in and it's very, very rare if you've got a system that's got all of the customers and leads you've ever dealt with that you've kept that system up to date. There's probably stuff in there that's 2 or 3 years old and that you'd never get to because you're focused on other things. Well, now's the time to get to it. Go in, qualify out the things that are no longer any good, qualify in the things that you think might be worth chasing after the coronavirus. And then once we hit the end of this coronavirus period, you can then focus on the hot ones at the top that you think are most worth contacting. It can just be a good way of like lining up the activity that you're going to do when things return back to normal again. A lot of people, you can also think about how you productize your time. So obviously Scorchsoft is in the business of selling, we kind of sell time for money in a way, but really what we're selling is a product, the product that somebody wants to build. That's the value that we bring. So whether it's a portal, a software as a service product, an app, the reason people are buying from us is because they're investing in building something. Yes, there's development time associated, but they know that whatever they're building is going to add more value to the business than what it costs to make. So rather than thinking about what it costs your business to do business, think about the value that you add to your customers and see if there's any ways that you can create a product out of what you do. You might brand it, you might give it a name, you might create some sales collateral for it, whether that be on the website or some PDF slides that explain what the value is. You might write a value proposition for it. All of these things then make that product or that's productized service easier to sell. And if you can't sell it now, then maybe post coronavirus, you'll be in a better position to do so. So what else have we got here? You can identify ways to diversify into different marketplaces. So like we said at the beginning of the video, some marketplaces are struggling, travel, entertainment, events rather. Some businesses are doing much, much better. Things like media, pharmaceuticals, food. So is there some way that you can pivot what you're doing and apply your resources that you've got to a slightly different marketplace where there's still demand? So for example, you look at the Formula One teams at the minute, people aren't going to watch their Formula One races. So they're instead manufacturing it's not a ventilator, but it's a form of breathing aid that's going to support the coronavirus. Why? Because there's massive demand. Same in food. People are struggling to get food produce. Is there a way that you can target that? So it's just about thinking outside the box and recognizing that whenever you have disruption like this, there's also potentially an opportunity because there's unmet market need. And if you can meet that market need, there's the possibility of making additional revenue if you can be quick with it. So and ultimately that reduces your risk exposure as well, to be honest. If you've got different markets that you go into, you're much less exposed to one of those markets than doing badly. You could plan a product explainer video. So let's say you've got a product or service that you sell on your website. You might market that, but do you have a video that describes what that product or service does? So you could plan out a script for that. Think about all the different screens, what you would like to display on the screens. And then you're creating the foundations of a digital asset. You could even, if it's not too expensive, you could even commission a video production company to just do a little animated video where it describes the benefit. But you're creating that digital asset that, though it might not add value today when the market's depressed, you might leverage that asset for years to come. It's giving you value over time and supporting future revenue, even though it's not contributing to revenue today. Another one is building if you have processes in your business for doing account-based marketing. So account-based marketing is where you would identify key contacts in your industry that you really want to do business with, and then you would come up with a plan of action for reaching those people or people in those organizations to build trust and rapport and get your business to a point where you can then go into that contact and close the sale, close the deal, ultimately sell your product. So in the meantime, if you've got time on your hands, what better way to spend that time than doing the research that's needed to conduct that strategy? Identifying key target businesses and people within those companies, and coming up with a strategy of how you reach them in a way that's going to be effective. You may not trigger that strategy today, but again, when coronavirus is said and done, well, you might trigger it today. You might actually start building relationships now, so that these strategies take time. You don't just suddenly nurture it and then they buy immediately. It might be 3 months anyway. So people are at home working, they're distracted, they're looking for things to do. Maybe now's the time to reach out to them and just have a conversation to make them aware of what you're doing. You can tidy up your social media profiles. So, you could be looking at ways of improving the perception of what's on there, improving the content, doing some posts. You could use post scheduling services to set up the next 6 months of posts that are going out on your social channels. These are all options. Record a series of selfie videos. Basically what I'm doing now. So I'm recording this video to try to add value to our customers and remind them that there's still opportunities in the marketplace. Not necessarily because I'm trying to close them now to business, but because I recognize if I can give the little bits of advice that help people do well, then that's appreciated and it helps build a relationship. It's quite easy, just set up your phone on a tripod. That's all I'm doing at the minute. And then in line with what we were talking about, your email marketing, you might send out an email to your contacts letting them know how you can help them in this situation that they're currently in. You might want to review your website value messaging, go through all your products and services that you've got on your website at the minute. Look at your homepage. Does what you're reading there really reflect where you are as a company today and what you're doing? And if it isn't, it might be time to reflect and improve on those. And the way you would do that, without going into too much detail, is you do a need, feature, benefit analysis. You think of your customer, you think of what they need, you think what features of your product hit that need, but then you think about what the benefits of those features are to the customer. And then once you've identified those 3 things, you can then write a value proposition saying, here is what we do, here is why you should believe that we can do it. What you do, and trust signals to indicate support for that being accurate. Conversion rate optimization is another one. So conversion rate optimization is all about taking the existing traffic that you've got going to your website or app and trying to get more out of it than you currently are. So let's say you've got 100 customers, 100 visitors in, 100 signups, whatever it might be. At the end of it, you might get 10 paying customers at the end of it. How do you go about increasing that to 11, to 12, to 13? So obviously you might find that your website visitors are down at the minute, depending upon which sector you're in, but as long as you've got some, you can use that information to tweak what you're doing and see if it improves that performance out the other end. So sometimes it can be little things like changing a button color. It can be changing the position. It can be rewriting value messaging. It can be adjusting the imagery. It could be a redesign. There's so many different ways that you might optimize performance. And generally what you do is you do a little test. You change something small, and then you look and see how that affects the conversion rate. If you see an uptick, it's worked well. If you don't, or you see it go backwards, you revert to how it was again. You can do this to all different areas of your site, your marketing, your apps. There's so much opportunity to do this within a business, and many people aren't doing it. You'd be surprised. There's so many people don't do this. So another one could be to review all the emails that you send to customers on a regular basis. Like how often are people asking you questions where you give pretty much the same reply again, but you might rewrite the whole thing. So it can be a good opportunity to go through your emails, look at where that's happening. And even better, you could use like a wiki or something like Confluence, Atlassian Confluence, to put all of those in one place so that people in your team have a place to go to see the best practice email responses to common inquiries. They might still tweak and change it based upon the customer's needs, but it can be a really good way to ensure a really decent, high quality, consistent response to your customers, which improves their customer experience, and ultimately that should translate to business metrics like increased sales or increased customer retention. You might want to sketch up a tech idea that you've always been thinking of that you think could transform your business. If you're a bricks and mortar company and you can't currently reach people digitally, you've probably found that everybody wants to be engaged with digitally at the moment because they're in the home. You might spot that there's an opportunity, and you might have an idea for a portal or a software as a service product, where people subscribe to it, or an app. So maybe now's the time to plan it out. Think about what screens there might be. Think about what the app's going to do. Think about how that might feed into your business and how it might change what you do. You might find that it automates some roles away so you can get key staff to be focusing on other things. So now's the time to sit down and plan what you're going to do there, because these things take time to build, things take time to plan, and in reality, if you're sitting down to plan now, you're months away from having it. And in that period of time, the world is going to start to return to normality again. You might want to create a high-value e-guide, or you might even want to write a book. You're creating an asset that demonstrates to customers trust, high-value asset, and you can use these things either you can just give them to people. If people read them, then if someone's read a 15-page e-guide that was really good, it says to them, this company knows what they're doing. If somebody's read a whole book that you've written, it adds to your credibility. And again, these are assets that add long-term value. So you build them, you write them, and in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time, you're probably still getting value out of them. So though they're not contributing to revenue now, they're contributing to revenue in the future. You could also, and it's a similar light as creating an e-guide or a book, you might also want to create an online course for what you do. Could providing a little bit of training, either free or a manageable cost to a particular customer, could that be the first step towards people becoming your customer? And that initial course gives them everything that they need and adds a load of value and makes them trust you as an organization and makes them more likely to then go on and spend with you. Research. Another one is you could review and train yourself on best practices in your industry. What are people doing well all across the board? What's the best software to be using across the board? Where are there opportunities in your organization to change and improve those processes? Because if you're not following best practice, you could be leaving productivity on the table. You could be having a lower customer experience to other people in your industry. And if you improve those things, again, it's adding value into the future. This is more for smaller businesses, but I suppose it applies to anybody who runs a team. You can write a delegation plan. So look at everything that you do, and identify how would you, if you had to delegate every single one of those functions, how would you and what would be required? So, as you grow, like I've run a business now for 10 years, and what I found is that as you grow, you inevitably have to take something that you're doing and delegate it because you don't have time. And if you're planning to grow your business out the other end of this, you're going to have to do the same thing. So whether it's sales, marketing, fulfillment, write down processes, think about the way that you could delegate that, and that will add value into the future. You could add another one that a lot of people aren't leveraging is having a decent frequently asked questions section on your site, particularly if you have a complex product or service. These things it takes quite a while to write a decent one, and it's got to be a decent one. But once you've written something like that, it's something that your prospective customers are going to value, and it's, again, adding value into the future. You could create at the point of need training materials. So when a customer engages with you as an organization, there's points where you might have to tell them what your process is. So for us, for example, if somebody builds an app or a portal or a software as a service product, there's the planning process that we do. It's really thorough, and it makes sure that we deliver a good product at the end of it. But there are bits in that planning process that involve the customer. They have to make certain decisions. And then at the end, when we've done all of our quality assurance and testing, there's a point at the end where the customer's also involved in that process. So when we onboard a new customer, we want to make sure that they know what things are happening all the way along the process. And if that might happen on the phone, it might be speaking to somebody, it might happen through emails. But you want to make sure that if you're going through that process of education with a customer at the point of need, that you've got really good resources for them to make sure they're getting a good experience in that journey. So you might create, again, sequence of emails might help, process documentation might help. You might create a little video explaining the process. You might write some emails up that can standardized formats that can go out. There's loads of things that you can do to support that process. Another one is if you're looking to become an influencer in your marketplace, you might consider creating a podcast. It doesn't have to be something that you do every week. You could literally create a 10 series podcast, 20 minutes to 30 minutes, 40 minutes an episode, 10 episodes. You've got several weeks to create all of this content right now if you're not occupied. And that's going to add value into the future. You can refer customers to it and show that you're a leader, a thought leader in this area, even if you don't add to it again once you've created the 10. 10 might be enough. 10 might be enough for people to just, like an online course, know what it is that they need to do and be more likely to convert to become one of your customers. So another one, and I say this because we recently created a portal for enabling customers to apply for government tenders called Tender Rocket. But you might want to review tenders, active tenders in your industry, and implement a process in your business for applying for them. So go online, find where the tenders are, such as on tenderrocket.com, identify which tenders are right for your business, which often these platforms help you with, and then put in place a process within your business for answering the questions in the tender, making sure that you're doing that right and involving the right stakeholders, and that you have the right process for then following up once you've submitted that tender. And you're making sure, doing that in a way where you make sure that you meet the criteria of the tender documentation. So, it's, if you put in place a process in your business now for doing that, because you might not have one, not everyone applies for tenders, then it means that when we return to normality, you can begin using tenders as an opportunity for growing your business into the future. So that's my list. That's my list of 18. And I know I've said this again throughout, but everything that's in this list is aimed at allowing you to generate revenue in the future because you're investing in your digital assets now. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps to give you a little bit of focus. I'd recommend sort of writing these down, prioritizing them, maybe put them on if you've ever seen an impact effort matrix, where you have like a effort impact on the business, you plot everyone on there and you focus on doing the things on this list that are the highest impact and the lowest effort or lowest cost first, to help you kind of prioritize, because I appreciate it's a long list. And this is now getting to be quite a long video, so I'm going to wrap up there. So I'm Andrew, I'm the Managing Director of Scorchsoft. If you do need help with anything around what I've discussed today, around app creation, I appreciate you might not be ready to do it now. It might be something that you're looking to do in the future. Scorchsoft.com, SCORCHSOFT.com. That's our website. There's lots of information on there. I hope that helps.